behalf of Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Atma Sanatan Dharma College, I, Ishita Chakrabarti, warmly welcome you to our Technical Session 1, Notion of India, Historical Perspective, Sahitya Academy supported 2-day interdisciplinary international seminar on the theme Notion of India, History, Politics and Literature in collaboration with Ambedkar and Gandhi study circles and departments of History and Hindi. I request our Professor Vishwa Mohan Jha to welcome and present planters to Professor Aditya Mukherjee and Professor S. Inayat Ali Zaidi. As it goes, we have one eminent speaker in this session, which will be chaired by Professor Aditya Mukherjee. Dr. Aditya Mukherjee is Professor of Contemporary Indian History, Center for Historical Studies, and former Dean, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has been an alumni of St. Stephen's College and JMI. He is the editor of the Sage series in the Modern Indian History and was editor of the selected works of Jawaharlal Nehru. He is member of the Council of the Indian Council for Historical Research, that is ICHR, since 2009. He specializes in economic history, particularly business history, and the political economy of post-colonial development. He was the president of the Indian History Congress for Modern India from 2007 to 8. He has been visiting professor at Duke University, USA, and Japan Foundation Fellow at University of Tokyo, Japan, visiting fellow at the Institutes of Advanced Study at Lancaster, UK, and at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil, among others. His publications include the following books: India's Struggle for Independence, co-author; India Since Independence, co-author; Imperialism, Nationalism, and the Making of Indian Capitalist Class. Our first speaker, Professor S. Inayat Ali Zaidi, has completed his education from Aligarh Muslim University and has over 38 years of teaching and 45 years of research experience. He has served as the professor, department head, and dean of the Faculty of Humanity and Language, Jamia Millia Islamia. The major projects undertaken by him includes the role and promotion of heritage, culture, tourism, study of Tafri-ul-Imarat, edition, annotation and translation, and Hindi translation of Abdul Ghaffar Mudholi's autobiography entitled Ek Muallam Ki Zindagi from Urdu under the program DRS SAP History Department, Jamia Millia Islamia. Apart from these, he has coordinated in various programs. Sir has served as the member of several academic bodies, delivered memorial and public lectures, authored the Dictionary of Historical Terms in English, Hindi and Urdu, written several books on tourism and numerous articles for reputed journals. In terms of awards and honors, he has been awarded the Commonwealth Academic Staff Fellowship by School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. A 3-month visit to Paris under UGC's Cultural Exchange Team for Young Social Scientists. Sir has also served as the General President of Rajasthan History Congress, Jodhpur, from 8th to 9th of November 2014. Our second speaker, Professor Eugenia Venina, is severely ill and couldn't be with us today. So I request Professor Vishwa Mohan Jha to please brief her topic related to this session.
Hello. It's really unfortunate that Professor Vanina could not be here with us today. She called me the day before yesterday. We had the longest chat and she seemed perfectly fine, cracking jokes and making very scholarly points as is her wont. And yesterday afternoon she says that she was having fever, the fever is gone, and she is suffering from actually very acute, she is not the one who would be prevented by a mere fever or headache or something. She is having very acute pain in her ear, I believe. So still she was hopeful that she could be here at any time around 2 o'clock even now. So I do hope she gets better, and she is scheduled to come here tomorrow also. The topic she was to speak on, this concerns this idea of India. Today in the morning we had our keynote speaker, Ananya Vajpayee. So she had many reservations, very serious reservations against this word notion. उन्होंने कहा था कि notion is a vague, fuzzy, non-concept of a word, something like that. So I wish she could be present for a more general. So I pointed out, I had the occasion to just bring it to her notice that there is a book by the celebrated political anthropologist Morton H. Freed. Morton H. Freed एक बहुत अच्छे political scientist हैं, political anthropologist हैं. उनकी एक किताब हम सबको पढ़नी चाहिए, The Evolution of Political Society. किन stages से गुजर करके आज हम इस मुकाम पर state society तक पहुँचे हैं. He also wrote another small but very powerfully argued, very widely noticed book. उस किताब का नाम है Notion of the Tribe. So I said distinctly to her that this book, it's I think available online too. So it both argues for and against her notion of notion. मैं ये कह रहा था कि जो कीनोट स्पीकर आते हैं जो आपको आंदोलित करते हैं या करना चाहिए अपने विचारों से, उसको सुन करके छोड़ना नहीं चाहिए, बल्कि एक वार्तालाप का सिलसिला शुरू करते हैं जिसे हमें जारी रखना चाहिए. तो उसी को जारी रखते हुए मैडम वनीना का जो टॉपिक था, एक इंडिया में 15th सेंचुरी में आए थे ट्रैवलर रशिया से, एथेनेसियस या एफेनेसी निकितिन के नाम से उनको जानते हैं. तो उनका अकाउंट बहुत वैल्यूबल अकाउंट है 15th सेंचुरी इंडिया के लिए. प्रोफेसर वनीना उसी के बारे में बात करने वाली थी. उसको ट्रांसलेट भी दोबारा करने की ज़रूरत है. ये सारे आइडिया जैसे कि गन पाउडर इंडिया में कब आया, क्या बाबर के साथ आया या पहले आया, तो इन सारी बातों पर भी रोशनी डालने वाली थी. इस बात के साथ उस वक्त का जो इंडिया था वो किस किस्म का भारत था. एक भारत वो था जो कि शुरू होता था साउथ ऑफ हिंदू कुश से. नॉर्थ ऑफ हिंदू कुश तो शायद नहीं रहा, तो साउथ से तो शुरू हो गया. और एक दूसरा भारत था जिसका सर था हरियाणा, सरहिंद, जो कि जिसकी बाउंड्री बहुत सिमटी हुई. शुरू से भी कई चीजें हैं इंडिया के नोशन के बारे में. तो प्रोफेसर वनीना की जगह में खड़ा हूँ, बोल रहा हूँ, तो उस नुकसान की भरपाई तो हम कर नहीं सकते हैं इन्हीं दो चार बातों के साथ. तो इंडिया का शी इज ए मेडिवलिस्ट, researches into modern Indian history, and the first time I heard her was those times when Mr. Vajpayee used to be the Prime Minister of India, and she was invited to a not very welcome invitation at ICHR, where she spoke on the idea of India brilliantly. She regaled us with new insights and all. So I hope tomorrow when she comes, उनको कहा जाएगा कि आप ट्रस्ट किया जाएगा कि आप और भी काम कर सकती हैं. तो उन्हीं के दिन पर वो बोलने वाली थी. उनका पेपर था एंड इंडिया विद अ डिफरेंस, द रशियन परसेप्शंस इन हिस्ट्री. इंडिया का एक परसेप्शन बाहर में ये भी था, सारे इंडियंस को शिकारपुरी बोलते थे. जैसे हम सारे साउथ इंडियंस को मद्रासी बोलते हैं। तो कल आती है मैडम, तो मैं आपको तैयार कर रहा हूँ कि आएंगी और बोलेंगी तो कितना मजा आएगा। So let's hope that she gets well and comes.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words. Now, it's my great honor and privilege to request Professor Aditya Mukherjee to conduct and take over this session. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here with my colleagues, students, friends. Thanks to Ajit for calling me here, and so many of our former JNU alumni here, Professor Jha. It is indeed a pleasure. It's a surprise that I haven't been to this college before, because one has spoken almost most of the colleges in Delhi. It's I agree with the statement that Professor Jha just now made, that if you cannot talk of a notion, then you cannot talk of a nation. Nations are created over time with a certain idea, but we will get to that over time. I don't want to come between you and our main speaker today. I was supposed to be only the timekeeper, but now I don't even have that task because there is only one speaker. So Professor Zaidi is going to have all the time that he wants and he needs to speak. It's a privilege to have him here. We have been friends, fellow travelers, arguing similar positions for a long time, and it's great to have you here, Professor Zaidi. The floor is all yours. If you can carry the crowd with you, I don't have any objection. हमारे JNU में तीन घंटे की classes normal है.
हमारे यहाँ भी आपके साथियों ने शुरू की थी, पौन घंटा में भाग जाते थे बड़ी जिद के साथ.
Certainly, I completely agree with Professor Jha's comment, and I could not understand how can we say there was no notion at all. And Aditya Mukherjee rightly said that without notion there is no nation. Through the ages actually, emergence of modern Indian nation took place. So, very hurriedly, some of them I would like to say what was the actually notion and perception of India outside and within India. That's important. In fact, for the construction of progressive modern India as a vibrant nation, our freedom fighters, our founding fathers looked in the past. They had very good knowledge of the past, which kind of India they had inherited from the colonial power, how the Britishers ruled and treated the people, and before the Britishers, how the country rulers treated their subject. These perceptions and pictures were before them. On the basis of these perceptions of India's inherited history, polity and culture, they framed the constitution. On that basis, they knew that what was the expectations of India from the long time and what kind of a culture they have inherited. On the basis of, as we know, At present, our constitution is under severe threat. Age is pronounced by the politicians, intellectuals, and conscious students. What actually Dr. Jha said, that it is the task of the students. I think so. When I talk about the students, generally I have in my mind JNU students. They are very active. So it is your duty also to discuss. It is very critical time. You see, we would like to tell you that what kind of a nation we have inherited and how it is to be developed further. That is important. In this background, I like to appreciate the thinkers of AR Erasti College to frame the concept of notion of India, history, politics and literature. In the concept note, the most striking feature is spelled out, that is how the revolt of 1857 at least showed that notion of India was not confined to the ruling elite only, but it had an equally deep impression among the soldiers and common masses. That is very important. Generally, we don't talk about the actually soldiers and the common masses. Even in the concept note, we say that it has been said, no doubt, it's very important statement, interesting and important. But we have not seen that kind of actually researches. There we can show, but we have lot of information in different forms. So to some extent, we shall like to talk about it. Thus, here we shall see through the ages what was the notion of India in the different social segments, how it percolated down from above to below. You see, just actually we are talking about the notion. So here in fact very briefly, in only one line, we say how the people think about India. Where is India? So in different societies, and as Professor Mukherjee said, that they had some kind of a notion or perception of India. Mesopotamian records or civilization, the word is generally in fact referred Mehlua, and that is actually related with India, modern school. Then Indoi or Indians, Greeks they use. Chinese, Shinto, Hindu and also Intu. Teaching again actually Chinese traveler, he used the Arya Desa or noble land. Ashoka, Jambodipa, obviously 16 Janpadas, and then Arabs Sindhu-Hind, they use the word Sindhu-Hind. And they also use Ajaibul-Hind, the word. That is interesting. When I teach tourism to my students, I say incredible India, the word has been coined by the Ministry of Tourism after spending lakhs of rupees. But in the 10th century, an Iranian sailor has written a book and he has used the word Ajaibul Hind. That is the exact translation of incredible India. Why it is incredible India? Why they say India is incredible? That is important to understand. We shall discuss later. Because of in certain Arabs, if we go to Arab sources written in Arabic, then we understand Edward Said's book actually Orientalism. Arab travelers or Arabs were so much fascinated with Indian culture, And why it was so, that is understandable. We have common sense and we can relate to different actually development of India at that time. Minhaj-us-Siraz, actually, he generally considered India as a territorial unit, just as Sanatan. He thinks that this is India. Al-Belunis, Al-Hind or Bharatvarsha, you know all of them, how used and how he was very much fascinated. Now you see, as it is, how the people in fact at that time, Ibn Battuta, from where India starts, Ibn Battuta, very extensive in fact writings on India, Ibn Battuta has. It's very interesting, and every aspect of Indian society, culture, economy, he discusses. And every kind of, in details and authentic. He said, we traveled from the city of Multan and until our arrival in the country of Al-Hind or Hindustan, our suit pursued the journey in the same order we have described earlier. The first city that we entered was that of Abohar, not Sarind, but it was Abohar. It is the first of the cities of Al-Hind. It is small, handsome, and thickly populated, and possesses rivers and trees. Of the trees of our country, there is none there except the Gisphus, lotus. So now that is not in fact, because he compares that India is far, far better in regard of the so many different kind of trees than his own country, Morocco. So in that, he has lot of praise for that one. But later on, when he was at Malabar coast, there he says that Arakka nuts are exported from the Buddhpeta or Malabar to China and Al-Hind. There Malabar is not included in his perception or notion, whatever you call it, that Malabar was a part of India. Then if we see Abul Fazl's or Akbar's perception, that is also significant. When Akbar or Abul Fazl, they geographically see India just like even today's India, geographically we see, Akbar actually also tried to see that kingdoms are divided from each other by rivers, mountains, deserts and languages. So actually that empire concept, if we apply to modern nation, particularly we see the European nation states emerged after 1789 in Europe. Those actually nations were identified by different races, language, natural boundaries. So these were the, whether it was Italy, Germany and Austria, etc. So from their point of view, in fact, the natural boundaries was seen as the dividing line of different actually nations or boundaries. Abul Fazl also says that Kabul and Kandahar are the twin gates of Hindustan. By the possession of these two places, Hindustan is made secure from foreigners. So from there he says that Hindustan starts. Similarly, if we read Ibn Battuta, then Ibn Battuta informs us about a particular dignitaries, very important dignitaries. They were coming from Central Asia to India during Muhammad bin Tughlaq's period. Muhammad bin Tughlaq deputed a delegation to receive them at the border. That was the protocol at time. Because we don't know about day-to-day life. Very, in fact, sophisticated life they follow, which we are unaware. What is the reason that maybe some extent our modern historiography, because of certain limitations, are responsible that we could not work on social and cultural history about these aspects. That's one of the teachers from JMI, she was telling, she has actually done research on day-to-day life. She was. So the people don't think, still actually we need a lot of researches on that. So my point in fact, that there, Ibn Battuta, when he talks that how the delegation was received, and there, after even Ibn Battuta was received, then Ibn Battuta was asked to fill a bond as a foreigner, and then he was allowed. Without, but in that particular bond, he says all particulars, what kind of physical features a foreigner has, what kind of clothes, what kind of actually manners, all these actually details are conveyed to the Muhammad bin Tughlaq or to the center. And if we go from this place to Delhi, it takes near about 50 days, but through their imperial messenger, it takes only 5 days. It was so fast. So he said that, so there was in fact, and why they in fact asked these people to actually fill the bond, that is something else we can discuss, and what was the significance of those bonds, because they wanted at that time that all these foreigners who are coming from Central Asia, actually they should stay here because they wanted certain literate persons. And this is the reason so many madrasas opened at that time, not to convert the people, not to teach the theology, but to produce actually literate persons to keep the records of the government. That we do find, and that is the, in fact, briefly I would like to say. The most interesting, once Professor Mukhya came when I was lecturer, he spoke on such kind of a topic, and I put up a question to him. It is from Tuzuk Jahangiri, that was interesting, and generally I actually have some kind of joke with my Kashmiri colleagues and friends. Jahangir says, the village of Thana became the encamping place. Many monkeys were seen in the Behram Galla. It is a place. From that stage, a great difference was apparent in the climate. Now he is saying why actually Kashmir is different to please. Why it is different? He gives actually some explanations that it is different because that was the perception of India in their mind. Behram Galla, from that stage a great difference was apparent in the climate, the language, the clothing, the animals, and whatever properly belongs to a warm country. The people here speak both Persian and Hindi. Evidently, Hindi is their real language, and they have acquired Kashmiri on account of proximity of Kashmir. Briefly, one enters India at this place. The women do not wear woolen clothing, and like Indian women, they wear nose rings. So it is his perception. Then Niccolo Manucci, Italian traveler, what he says, Italian traveler Manucci, while traveling from Gurgaon to Delhi, reached Handia town situated on the bank of river Narmada. Very noted. Its water divide the lands of Deccan from those of Hindustan. Hindustan, which word means Hindudam, a place of Hita, Murti Puja. He says from South India. So these were the different perception. The point in fact which we would like to see here, emergence of modern Indian nation, that is important for us to understand how India emerged through political integration, through administrative integration and economic integration, social and cultural integration, and there were so many diversities in all these aspects. But even then, in fact, India, we have different kind of way of life, different kind of. In South India, you can see, कभी हम लोग हंसते भी हैं, Rajasthan, Assam, Bengal, this and that. But even then, when somebody asks from which country you belong, we say from India. So what were the forces, in fact, which gave us that kind of identity, or we claim that kind of identity? If the people in particular time, they did not agree with that kind of identity, they separated themselves. But the inherited culture on which our constitution, on which we stand today, in fact, we identify ourselves as Indians. First of all, how India through the ages, in fact modern India, it is not created only in 1 century or 1 decade or 1 century. It takes long time. For example, if I say that the role of Asokas in regard of is actually edict pillars in north, in east, in south, that kind of actually edict pillars where Dharma is described, started to create in fact similar kind of identity. That is important, that from there it started. Then the second aspect, if we see, then in fact the pilgrimages in India played very significant role to bring that together, to understand each other, to identify each other. That is important. For example, Banarsi Das Ardha Kathanak. Banarsi Das Ardha Kathanak discusses about his pilgrimage, not only his family, but several people were in that particular. They were going to Parsavna, Jharkhand. That nowadays it is in controversy. You might be knowing through newspapers about that one, how the actually Jainis, they are claiming that place, and the tribes, local tribes are challenged. So that is, and this actually Banarsi Das, a little bit actually my interest also, because I think now still should not be confined, it still should now change its focus on tourism, heritage and culture tourism, and I would like to say even law subjects, because we have a long tradition now we say. So even management, in fact, we have that kind of actually information in the sources, finance and management. We should also focus on these aspects nowadays, you see. So Banarsi Das Ardha Kathanak, because the people of tourism, they always relate us that tourism started in Europe. It is not so. The word tourism was not there. It doesn't mean there was no tourism. There was certainly a traveling. So traveling, what I call it, traveler tourism. And they argue against this kind of actually traveling. They say it is not tourism because the money is not involved. Here we do find in Banarsi Das, place to place, he goes to the market, certain shops, and buys certain actually needed items from those shops. So money is certainly, when a group goes there, they also need certain kind of items for their daily life. So this is not so that money was not used, therefore it was not tourism. It is not so. So then the second one, hurriedly actually, I am not going into those details. Mahmoud Balkhi, Iranian traveler, he came to see India and he also traveled. And his actually wish was to visit Sri Lanka. But he traveled from North India to Jagannath Puri. And very interesting actually description he gives. He says that he identified himself as a Hindu. No, and he says that I was included in that particular group, very large group he says, and I was also barefooted, and the people were speaking Hari Bol through the in fact route, and I started also to speak Hari Bol, and then when he reached, there are other descriptions also, Banaras, in Banaras, and he says that on our route, there were men and women, they were coming closer to each other, their bodies were touching to each other, but there was not a single person who can think other way around. They were so much spiritual in their whole actually journey. When he reached actually Banaras, he says that the people had bath in the river, and the women, when they came out, their body was visible. He says even the farishta come from heaven, unka iman bhi dagmaga jayega, but there is not a single person who can think like that. Then he says there were certain Muslims who were converted to Hinduism. He says, I asked them through insinuation, through the language of insinuation, कि भाई आप कैसे हिंदू बन गए? तो he says that उन्होंने अपने जो है forehead की तरफ इशारा किया कि our fate brought us here. So generally it is said that in fact it is not so very mixed up anyway. So then he reached Jagannath, and very vivid description he gives about Jagannath temple. He went inside and visited the temple also, and how the people there sacrificed their lives. This he said. Bhimsen, again, how in fact the greater India, what we call it, and the word India as today we use, slowly and gradually is developed, not only among us, even in the masses. I would like to further discuss that aspect. Bhimsen, who was posted in the Deccan, he says that he was in Nasik. His father was also there in Nasik as Mughal official in the 17th century, and he says that there in Nasik there is some kind of a mini Kumbh Mela. The people come from North India like Nagas, and they fight each other. Many persons, they visit Nasik to attend that actually Kumbh Mela in Deccan, Godavari river. And then he talks about his family relations, intimate relations with also the Muslim nobles, Muslim families, parties. That we would like to discuss at proper place. When I say, in fact, political and administrative integration, or that is also included geographic actually integration, from very beginning, what we say from the Chachnama, we find that the outlook of the Arabs, of the Turk, of the Mughals was to include the local people in their administration. It was not so, but it reached culmination during the period of Atma, very systematically. So before that, In fact, there are so much information in Chachnama, but one interesting information that may also interest you, that they confronted, because of their faith in Islam, that how to rule these, in fact, kafirs. That is not permissible. Only, in fact, in case either they should be converted to Islam or they should be killed. There are only two ways. That was not practical, that was not possible. Then they wrote a letter, their chief, to the Khalifa. Khalifa उस टाइम में शीजिया में बैठता था, and received the reply after some days. He wrote, they treat them jimmis. Jimmi means Ahle Kitab. So my point actually always I say, how Islam accommodated, how Islam changed in India. Many of my friends in Jamia, they won't agree with that Islam did not change. But certainly, if we look at ground level, in so many respects, nowadays again there is we have the Modi's rules, we are seeing is a Pasmanda, Muslims, reservation, and one particular they are a particular Muslim group demanding the reservation. Whether they reserve or not, there is no position. But they have एक और रूस जो है धोखे वाली चीज पैदा कर दी. And the people are fear that some of them will think that the Pasmanda Muslims, Dalit Muslims will get some kind of reservation. So that kind of a ruse or that kind of a धोखाधड़ी at least उस टाइम में नहीं था. हमें नजर नहीं आता सोर्सेज में जो आजकल नजर आ रहा है जिस तरह की धोखाधड़ी. सो ये जो है, तो ये जो पॉलिसी ऑफ इंक्लूजन है, तो फ्रॉम देयर इटसेल्फ वी डू फाइंड व्हेन वी कम टू द सल्तनत पीरियड. So this is the period, this is the most actually controversial, and it is exploited by the communal forces, both the communal forces, Hindu, Muslim. Muslims communals, they justify, and Hindu communal, they challenge, and they feed each other. So from very beginning, even in the, it is important to understand or underline that in the Baat Sangre, in the Rajasthani Marwari Baat Sangre, we do find the interaction between the Sultan and the Rajput chiefs. Alauddin Khalji had his some bodyguards, they were the Rajputs. Those bodyguards were the Rajputs. So from very beginning, slowly and gradually, the local people, it was necessary, it was not so कि इनका खून में कोई लिबरलिज्म था. अब they knew very well, if we don't include, then it is not possible to stay here and rule. That is the pragmatic policy. And this is the reason they did not actually, they refused to follow Sharia. Then about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, we know several local persons, zamindars, they were included in the service and they were assigned very important positions also. So it continued in that way, and if I talk about a little bit judicially, here I may cite that particular incident under Sikandar Lodi. That is also relevant. If you see in today's context, Babri Masjid, in the Sultan Sikandar Lodi, he wanted to destroy the religious places of Thanesar. That is today's Kurukshetra. He wanted to destroy, and he called a meeting, Mahzab, and certain important ulama, they were included in that Mahzab or in that committee. But there was Mullah Abdullah Azadi, he was the senior most. He said, no, you can't destroy these places. And why? He said, these are the actually old places. They have their place to worship, then you are not authorized to destroy. He became very angry, furious. It is written in the source. We don't talk in the air कि ऐसा वैसा कोई हो गया जैसे और जिस तरह के आजकल हिस्ट्री राइटिंग्स हो रही है या जो है जो चाहे जो लिख दीजिए ये sources में जब but he was not afraid of certain junior alim. They left the place but he stood and ultimately in fact Sikandar Lodi bowed down to him and said it's okay, whenever you have time you visit them. So that kind of information we have, it is not so. Then we shall come on that there were also certain orthodox. They always actually wanted to force the state to follow Sharia or one-sided kind of administration based on Sharia or Islamic laws. They refused. As you know very well, Qazi Mudish, before that Iltutmish, that there was a group and they asked Iltutmish to follow Sharia in running the state. He said no, I can't. Then Alauddin Khalji, who was much villain without knowing about Alauddin Khalji, the different kind of is okay. In film industry, actually there certain films are produced based on certain fiction, that is all. But when the people of certain political parties, they try to defend the image of Alauddin Khalji, and when we question them on television, yeah, how can you say? Then this is the particular tactics of all communalists. Because they don't have knowledge, they don't have facts. So they started to allow the Khalji. Yes, Sinha, R.K. Sinha was in one of the actually television show and we were talking about Azadi. So then he said, why are you talking about Alauddin Khalji? We are talking about Alauddin Khalji. But you are talking about Aurangzeb. Why are you talking about Aurangzeb? They don't come with preparation. And in fact, that is the case. They always actually कुतर्क जो हिंदी का बहुत अच्छा वर्ड है, आप कुतर्क करवा लीजिए, तर्क जो है माननीय scientific और rational तर्क we don't find. So, as I said earlier, that all these, in fact, whether Shershah Suri, whatever, they all actually Sultan, they identified themselves with the people, and then Akbar, in fact, very systematically opened that on the basis of merit for everyone. Systematically, he included the people, and Akbar, in the first 20 years, we do find there are certain contradictions in his actions, and those contradictions have been debated by two prominent historians recently, but I say that those contradictions should be seen in the light of Akbar's, in fact, inquisitiveness to understand Indian society in depth. Now, from very beginning, Akbar had actually rational or enlightened mind. When, in fact, he condemns himself later on. He says, I converted some people in the beginning. That was my foolishness. Or we do find in the Rajasthani sources that one noble, he Mandalik Turk ho gyo, gairo mas khave. But Turk hoना was not considered abominable. But Gairo Mas Khave, that is really very serious matter for the Hindus and Rajputs. That is there, no doubt, that we would like to discuss, we would like to talk about the actually food habits and food ways how they did it. So, Akbar created some kind of a in-depth confidence among the local zamindars, including Shekhzadas and the Rajput etc. Akbar, on the basis of merit, we do find so many examples that merit was always given preference than the loyalties. Loyalties was the secondary aspect. I have seen in many respects, I have written a paper and presented in Rajasthan History Congress that now very much evolved, but he failed to show his merit in the battlefield. He was despised. So that kind of Akbar and Jahangir, they had that kind of attitude to the Mughal emperors. So Akbar, for example, Mansabdar, first in 71-72, in the beginning, Raja Bharbar was assigned Agra, appointed Wazir Mutlaq, and went to Gujarat. The whole empire was left on Raja Bharbar. And that was the signal to the rest of the Rajputs. They started to come to the imperial service, started to send dolas, their daughters and sisters, and they started to join. That, so I said in one of the, actually BJP's wing, this man Indresh is, once actually I was asked by one of my friends, he is also in fact the in charge of the कौन सी कॉलेज है दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में academic staff college. She was very close to us. She asked me to attend. She didn't know much about it. So I attended that one. And there were certain Jamias, Muslim professors. They also came to attend. I told her that I am not that kind of person. I don't want to attend. But she said, please do come and attend. It is. So I attended that one. And there were certain Jamia professors sitting. I told Indresh, you behave like Akbar. Assign them vice chancellors if they are coming here, coming to you. You see, so many Muslims would be with you. And this is the typical kind of a reaction of these communal persons. When he started to speak, he said, "Kya Akbar ne kya nahi kiya, hum nahi jante, aap soche usko jante ho." He outrightly rejected. They don't talk on this. So, in fact, Akbar created 12 subhas, how in fact the India was expanded, the notion or perception, India was expanded, that is important to understand. Out of 12 subhas, 4 subhas were actually assigned to the Rajput chiefs as subedars. 4 subhas are very important subhas. Delhi, Agra, Ajmer, these 4 subhas were assigned to them. So obviously, the mansabs were assigned on the basis of merit. So it means, in other words, I would like to say, power and share, both were equally shared among the different powerful groups, elites. How we reached to the, in fact, lower strata of the society, this kind of image of the Mughal Empire, and later on, in fact, it emerged as India's identity that is to be understood. Economic integration, when we talk about economic integration, very briefly, I would like to say that economic integration from a smallest unit, revenue unit, agricultural unit, hamlet, to in fact the Suba, the whole account systematically was kept, was recorded, and we do find that kind of record in Rajasthan State Archives, Bikaner, and then in fact we do find even the Aine Akbari, the people, student of history, if they are not student of history, even then they should know. Aine Akbari provide the details of the soldiers, from which now we are talking about in Bihar, caste census की, तो वहाँ तो पूरा सर्वे है कि कितने अफगान सोल्जर्स है, कितने जो है राजपूत सोल्जर्स है, कितने शेखजादा सोल्जर्स है, किस किस प्रगना में है, किस किस उसमें है, and in detail then we come to know Arsatas, a source which is actually preserved in Rajasthan State Archives, Bikaner. So such kind of economic integration, and economic integration from the time of Ashoka, there were routes, trade routes were developed, facilities were provided, sarai, water, everything from Peshawar to, in fact, Bengal, then from South India to North India. And the coast minar, sarais, different kind of a food was provided in the sarais, vegetarian food and non-vegetarian food. Okay. So, then Hundis, the Banyas became very active because of the centralized state and because of the increasing benefits, participation in the trade and commerce. Hundi system developed, banking, what we call it a banking system. Different kind of hundis were there, sarrafs were there. So this kind of economy, whether he was in a Multan or whether he was in actually Deccan or South India or Bengal. How through hundis the money transaction, money remittances was taking place. That is important, in fact. So economic integration from agriculture to trade and commerce, we do find. It is now, then we come on much more, in fact, socio-cultural integration. When we talk about socio-cultural integration, one thing is clear, that Hindus and Muslims, they never eat together. But they never created hate each other. It was their norms. In Rajasthan, Marwadi society, what we do know, ये उनका नेम है, मतलब उनका नियम है, उनका नेम है, कभी अलग खाते हैं। अभी भी the heritage we have inherited, कि शादियों में जो मेन खाना होता है, उसमें नॉन वेज इज नॉट कुक्ड, इवन लहसुन और प्याज भी नहीं इस्तेमाल होता है। देयर आर सर्टेन एग्जांपल्स, जब किसी ने डाल दिया तो जो है पड़ोसियों ने खाना नहीं खाया तो जो है बहुत नाराज हुए और दूसरे दिन दोबारा से दावत हुई। तो स्टिल इवन इन द विलेजेस द कन्वर्टेड Rajput Muslims, they don't cook actually meat in their houses because their neighbors are Banyas. And then when come to city, they actually take with them cooked meat. So that kind of a heritage, diversity is very much there. Raja Man Singh and Mirza Abdul Rahim Khanan never ate together. Food was but in that way quite different. Nikitin, he was talking about. Nikitin gives very interesting information. He was invited by certain Banyas to their house to eat. Then he actually described the full description how the people eat here. First कौन आता है, बच्चे आते हैं, फिर उनको खिलाते हैं, जैसे आज भी पहले बच्चों को, फिर जो है ये, फिर बाद में लेडीज, वो सब, और कहता है कि मैंने नाम बदला. Basically, he says I am a Jew, and he changed his name. So there was certain kind of a trade rivalry, and I think it is one of the reasons in Gujarat, because of that trade rivalry. In Gujarat, we have so much communalism. We see, in fact, in Gujarat, in the sources also, how, for example, मैं आपको गुड गवर्नेंस की बात करता हूँ. हाउ इंडिया वाज appreciated by the travelers. In Kembe, there was a Muslim locality. Muslims were staying there, and certain Parsis were the traders. They actually उनको किसको उकसाया, बनिया को, हिंदुओं को उकसाने पे जो मुस्लिम्स की मास थी उस पर अटैक करवा दिया. ये अरब सोर्स में लिखा हुआ है. और उस पर अटैक करवाया, एंड दैट पार्टी दैट वाज डिस्ट्रॉयड. Mandate is set. When it was destroyed, तो खतीब Ali, he approached the king Jesse. At that time, his name Raja was Jesse. He says that the bureaucracy did not allow him to enter that actually particular territory. He was kept away. They were so much in league that he should not be allowed. He said, I sat down under a tree. When Raja came, I rushed and petitioned him that this has happened. He said, okay. He asked his Wazir, say that I shall stay for 2 days in my Siriglio. मैं जो है उसमें रहूँगा अपने दरबार में, रनिवास में, तो कोई डिस्टर्ब ना करे. और कहते हैं कि वो भैंस बदल करके और ट्रेडर बन करके went to that particular place and inquired. Then there he says that he found, in fact, really the people have committed some kind of atrocities on these Muslims. He came back और next day उसने दरबार बुलाया और बुलाया एक को कि एक के बाद he was telling they were speaking lie. तो उन्होंने क्या किया आते हुए, that was the way गवर्नेंस का, जुडिशरी का, कि वो पानी लेके आया था समुंदर का जो सलाइन वाटर था. जब जैसे वो झूठ बोलता था तो वो उनको देता था कि जो है इनको पानी पिलाइए गिलास, तो वो समझ आता. अल्टीमेटली जजमेंट ये था, नॉट लाइक टुडे. इस तरह का फेयर एक्चुअली जजमेंट, क्योंकि उस टाइम में जुडिशरी वाज वेरी वेरी न्यूट्रल एंड अबव टू द किंग. तो जब उसने कहा कि नहीं, इनको पूरा कंपनसेट किया जाए, इनको 2 छत्र दिए जाए और पूरी मास जो है रिबेट की जाए, वरना ऑब्वियसली कि जो ट्रेडर्स है, कॉमर्स है, वो फ्लोरिश नहीं करेगी. ये दैट वाज द बेसिकली दैट आउटलुक व्हाट आई अंडरस्टैंड. I don't say that he was a liberal Hindu or Muslim, but that was so. In fact, so he says in the end, this writer, very important writer is, he says that this is the actually rule of justice in India, in Hindustan, that should be appreciated. In the end, he writes. So this kind of actually judiciary we inherited. Actually, because sometimes I don't want to repeat, लेकिन कुछ ऐसी चीजें हैं जो from below है, that I would like to highlight here, कि happy or sorrow moments were shared by the elites as well as actually lower strata of the society. इतना जैसे अकबर की माँ का इंतकाल हुआ, when she died, जो है शेव कराई सर की, जैसे हमारे यहाँ ट्रेडिशन है. And many Rajputs follow issue. They also shave their heads to show their mourning to that lady, departed soul. And next or third day, I don't remember exactly. Next day there was Dashera. तो मॉर्निंग डे चल रहे थे, तो अकबर लिखा हुआ इट इज इन द अकबरनामा. अकबर केम आउट इन हिज मॉर्निंग ड्रेस, वाइट ड्रेस, एंड ही कॉल्ड द ऑफिशियल्स. ही सेड कि कल दशहरा है, कि दशहरा सेलिब्रेट होना चाहिए, तो ये डिक्लेयर कर दो कि मॉर्निंग डेज आर ओवर, हम विड्रॉ कर रहे हैं और सब, और मॉर्निंग डेज खत्म किए गए और दशहरा सेलिब्रेट. the sentiments of the people were respected. That is important. Not like today. Sati, for example, the people still think that it was abolished by the Britishers. Raja Ram Mohan Rai is given, he should be given credit. I don't say he should not be. But the idea was floated of disliking Sati was of first Muhammad bin Tughlaq and second Akbar intervened when the princess girl from Bikaner, how they integration socially, how the Rajputs others integrated each other, was married to a Bagelachi. Bagelkhand was Allahabad, and she was going, very young girl she was, and that Bagelachi in fact fell down from the horse and died. Then that lady wanted to commit sati or assign herself to fire. Atma received the message from the harem that she should be saved. Immediately, very interesting, you read, just like today. In fact, जब अकबर ने तो सीनियर राजपूत को बुलाया, जिसमें मोटा राजा राय सिंह और राजा बासु, he actually called them and deputed them to go and save the life of that lady, that girl. And they went there. In 2 cases, he intervened personally. Abul Fazl said that was, in fact, very volatile situation. And with so much difficulty, she was saved, her life was saved. In one more occasion, but what he did? Like, in fact, what with Talaq, he did not completely bend. He could. He was an emperor. Monarch, he could. But what he said, he issued it, in fact, decree that anybody in future wishes to commit sati or assign herself to fire, first she should come to the Qazi. Qazi will pursue her not to assign herself to the fire. Even then, if she is adamant, then she should be allowed. That kind. It was not completely banned. It was such a social and cultural, in fact, tradition. So what happened, in fact, then we do find in the sources, whenever in the villages, some of the information we do find in Vakaya Sarkar Nantapur was there, and in very interesting in Bernier's travelogue, that when Danishman, he was in the service of Danishman, he was a noble, very powerful noble. One of the Karkuns died. His wife wanted to commit sati. So Danishman Khan deputed Bernier, go and ask her not to assign herself to fire. He went there, English में translation है, पढ़िए आप, तो वो गया और कहा with so many explanations, with so many ways, I explained to her, don't assign yourself to fire, and it is not because the state is ready to help you, your family, but she was surrounded by the Pandits and her relations. She was not listening, she said no. In between, ऐसा लगता है वो पढ़ के जैसे हार जाते ना, यार अब जो करना कर लीजिए जाइए. That situation had come. He said, इसी वक्त जो है उसका बच्चा छोटा रोता हुआ उसकी गोद में आया, तो मैंने कहा what would happen this boy, your son? She said, I won't commit sin. So we do find that how it was implemented, but it was not imposed like this. So the initiative was taken by the Akbar, then obviously a thought was created. So in fact I would like to say that when we talk about the sati, Muhammad bin Tughlaq and Akbar should also be taken into account. This, आप थोड़ा सा मैं देख रहा हूँ
if you will conclude, then we can have question and answers also.
कोई तो नहीं चाहता कि मुझे ग्रिल करेगा. So anyway, this is important. One aspect that is very important. अगर आप इजाज़त दें, देखिए काउ स्लॉटर आईने अकबरी में आप कहीं पर दुनिया में मेरा नहीं है, अगर आप लोग बेहतर जानते हैं सर भी और हमारे साथी भी, कहीं भी वेजिटेरियन फूड आईने अकबरी में 3 तरह का फूड दे रखा है क्योंकि हॉस्पिटलिटी भी चीज़ करता है. मैं समझता हूँ कि अब हम इनको जो कम्युनल हिस्टोरियंस हैं उनको ब्रेक करने के लिए इस तरह के जो पॉपुलर सब्जेक्ट्स हैं वी शुड मेक सम सर्टेन इनवर्ड्स. तो वहाँ पर जो है 3 तरह का स्पाइसी, light and Sufiana food. Sufiana food is in fact vegetarian food completely. If you see that one, wheat eating was disgraced by you, and cow slaughter was completely banned. And Abul Fazal enumerates 3 reasons, very important reasons. देखिए अकबर और अबुल फजल में यह था कि they were in fact very reasonable, rational in their outlook. They did not take the account of the any religion. He said there are 3 reasons why cow is important. Number 1, till the soil, agriculture production. Number 2, it gives milk, curd and butter. Number 3, transportation. Therefore, cow is very important. So, cow slaughter was banned, and one official in Thanesar, Kurukshetra, when it came to his notice, then he slaughtered a cow. He was banished, and no one liked to keep him. That fellow. And then Jahangir later on 9 months in a year, they discussed there should not be any kind of slaughter. Very important description is given. Days are given. 9, in fact, even Ashoka के यहाँ पर ये slaughter वाला समाज जो अहिंसा वाला है. So those in fact, then it was during Jahangir's time. There was one case. The Kotwal could not stop that slaughter on particular day. The Kotwal was punished. City in charge, he was punished. So cow slaughter, certain. But on the other hand, it is significant. We do find lot of information how this kind of a slaughter, animal slaughter, went for 9 months, was criticized by the Europeans, by the Christians. They say elite people वो तो अपने घर में जो है बकरा काट लेते हैं, गरीब लोगों को नहीं मिलता. Well-slaughter rights, all these things. So, in fact, cow slaughter. But on the other hand, that is important. The Rajput chiefs, Hindu chiefs, they allowed. They said in their religion. देखिए आप हिंदुस्तानी कल्चर का अंडरस्टैंडिंग ईच अदर कि इनके यहाँ पर ये अलाउ है. इसलिए अजीत सिंह वाज द सूबेदार ऑफ अहमदाबाद. गुजरात के अंदर ईद के दिन, बकरीद के दिन जब कोई सूबेदार गाय ले जा रहा था तो एक राजपूत सूबेदार ने उसकी गाय छीन ली. He petitioned. There was a very systematic, in fact, system of submitting petitions, and those petitions were scrutinized and heard by the officials. And in that petition, Qazi pleaded, and the Subedar, Ajit Singh Rathod, was from Jodhpur, he gave verdict, यानी इनके धर्म में ये ना हुई. इसी तरह साउथ में राजा राम, उसके भाई ने कहा कभी ये गाय करते हैं, मुस्लिम लोकेलिटी है, बाहर का है औरत, तब इनको मना करो. उसने कहा भाई साहब ये जो है, जो आए हैं, ये जो है यहाँ नौकरी करने आए हैं, इन्होंने अपना धर्म नहीं बदला है. ये वो इस तरह की जो है ये हमारे गुलाम रजा साहब ने ये उसी सोर्स में जो है ट्रेवलॉग में जिसमें आपने रिसर्च की है, एमफिल किया है, ये उसमें। और अकबर ने न सिर्फ ही इनफैक्ट आइडेंटिफाई हिमसेल्फ एलिट, मैं कहता हूँ 20 साल तक उसने रिसर्च की है। ये इबादत खाना और जो है दीन इलाही, ये सब उसके रिसर्च की लेबोरेटरीज थी। अदरवाइज वो किसको कहता, बहुत से लोग जो है उसने किस तरह से मटेरियल कलेक्ट किया, किस तरह से उसको एनालाइज किया, क्या तमाम ये पूरी फ्रॉम डिफरेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से आप देखें, डिफरेंट एंगल से। तो आजकल उसी में थोड़े देख रहे हैं, तो उसको जो है 20 साल तक रीच्ड कंक्लूजन का सुलह कुल इज द ओनली वे टू कीप इंडिया टुगेदर। एज आई सेड कि जजिया वगैरह ये सब चीज़ें जो है वो अलग एक बात है जिसकी भी बात कर सकते हैं, लेकिन जैसे सर कह रहे हैं कि ये लोग भी जो है बात करेंगे अगर पूछेंगे, तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि इस तरह की सुलह कुल और फाइनली रीच्ड एट कंक्लूजन पीस विद ऑल इज वेरी मच नेसेसरी, इट शुड बी फॉलोड। और वही बात के अंदर अहिंसा जो बाकायदा गांधी जी ने और सब ने फॉलो किया, उसके बाद हमारे और सब पे जो है महात्मा गांधी और नेहरू जी ने नॉन अलाइड मूवमेंट है, जिसके इन्होंने बट्टे बैठा दिए, नॉन अलाइड मूवमेंट, जिसमें दुनिया में एक थर्ड फेज था, थर्ड से थी नॉन अलाइड मूवमेंट की वजह से। तो सर शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत आपका।